Thunder grunts.
Hey guys,
Bob,
Hey, Bob.
who are you?
I am Jimmy George. I am a script consultant and a screenwriter.
I am Jamie Nash, and I am a screenwriter.
And I'm Bob Rose, and I do read the last page of a book before I finish it, just in case I die.
Wow.
So you know how it ends.
Welcome to Writers Blockbusters. Right, today we're going to talk about When Harry Met Sally,
Yeah,
a movie that I just said to you guys never thought I would talk about on a podcast.
yeah. I'm glad.
So
we're
I'm kind of
talking
excited
it.
about it. Yeah, I feel like it's unique among all the stuff we've talked about.
I have a weird admission to this I was telling Bob about earlier. I don't know that I had ever watched this movie end to end all the way through until this podcast.
But you've seen it all the way.
But when I watched it, I knew every scene, so I guess I had watched.
So familiar.
It's so familiar.
Yeah.
But not even and I'm not even exaggerating. Like I had seen kind of the connective tissue scenes, like, or, so I remembered the whole thing. So I guess I have watched it or something, but
Yeah.
I must have watched it in chunks or something.
I feel like I could say that from my cable days,
Mhm.
back in my childhood.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of chunks of movies. Now I just watch the movies in full. It's media's changed.
Right.
But,
Like
yeah.
nothing surprised me in it. Even scenes like them in the restaurant with Carrie Fisher and, and stuff like that. Like I'd seen all of these scenes. It wasn't just like the diner scene
Yeah.
or something that most people had seen,
Well, it's just, but it is kind of a movie that's iconic, right? I mean,
Oh, people.
For sure.
Yes.
yeah, like I feel like even today it's still looked upon as
Definitely.
the romantic comedy
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
Well,
the modern age romantic comedy.
Just to
right?
give
Yeah.
you a reason why I wasn't seeing this movie back in the day. So this movie came out in 1989. It finished number 11,
Okay.
just ahead of The War of the Roses,
Okay. Wow. Okay.
which I was really into.
A
in
movie as
1989.
a kid, I was like obsessed with because my name was Rose. I'm
Oh,
not even joking.
wow.
I didn't even think
Like
of that.
I always considered it really cool.
Roses
Well, I was young enough
War.
where I was like, "Oh my god, our names in a movie,
That's
Mom!
great.
Look." Yeah,
It
That's
made
great, Bob.
when Harry Met Sally made 92 million domestically.
Wait,
They didn't have the
89.
foreign.
that's
monies
without
for it.
inflation.
That is without inflation.
That's
correct.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So
They
ahead,
said it cost 14 on the extras. They said it cost 14 million.
let me see what Box Office Mojo has for it. It has NA, so that
Yeah,
means 14.
Rob Reiner, because it was Rob Reiner's company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said
Castle
it cost
Rock.
14 million. Yeah.
Meathead directed it. Yeah, right.
So Dead Poets was next at 95.
Man, what a different world.
Wow.
There's the movies you're just saying is like completely
That are the
different
top.
world. Yeah.
Parenthood was number 9
Wow.
at 100.
Not an action movie yet.
I'm surprised this movie is this
Wow.
old. I wouldn't have predicted this. Another movie I haven't seen, actually, Driving Miss Daisy, at 106 million.
Wow, more than both
Yep.
of those.
Ghostbusters 2, 112.
Okay, genre.
Back
There we
to the
go.
Future 2, 118. That's at 6. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, 130.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
But-
at 5.
The top ones were not genre.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
Look Who's Talking, 140. That's
Hell
like
yeah.
Yeah.
the blemish on the 19. Yeah.
One day we should
Oh.
do a Look Who's Talking.
Yeah, exactly. Lethal Weapon 2 at 147 million.
Okay, there you go. You get into an action.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade at 197 million, and Batman at 251 million. And those
Awesome.
are your top 10 movies of 1989.
I've picked a couple for us to do this year because they're the anniversary years.
Oh, yeah.
So there's going to be a couple on that list that are.
I know
on
that
my
list just made
yeah.
me feel super old.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of them feel like they came later. Like, I was a big Raiders of the Lost Ark guy, but Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade came when I was a little older, and Batman felt like it was after my movie love was firmly established. I was, I was coming at it from a different side. Of things, so.
Man, those are both 30 years for that, huh?
30 years. 30 years
That's
for all
nuts.
those movies.
That's really nuts.
So,
well, anyway, When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, let's talk about, instead of the year 1989, let's talk about the movie.
Jamie, you're good at telling these stories of who wrote it.
oh, Nora,
tell us.
This is a Nora Ephron script. I read a book.
A legend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I read a book years ago about her movies in general. I think I wish I should have looked it up before I went into this, but it was like how Nora Ephron saved a genre, and I'm sure if you Google Nora Ephron and books,
She's had some missteps though.
she has, and it talks.
Bewitched.
Which one?
She made the Bewitched movie.
Oh, the Bewitched movie.
Yeah, right.
So she this movie in particular was really interesting. I think she had just made. Gosh, now I should have looked it up. Now I should IMDb it. What was the movie with Meryl Streep she made? Heartbeats?
That sounds right.
I think she had just made that, if from my memory.
Did you say Heartbeats or Heart Beeps? Because that's two really different movies.
Not Heart Beeps.
Heart Beeps.
That's one we should do on the podcast. Heart Beeps.
The Andy Kaufman movie for anyone listening.
Right. Classic. The Andy Kaufman classic. I'm going to look her up really quick just to make sure I'm not making stuff up here. But anyway, so she wanted to make a movie with Rob Reiner. The interesting thing about it, she pitched him movies, he pitched her movies, and I think it just came about from Rob Reiner saying the thing about two people can't be friends, and because sex always get in the way and all that stuff. Well,
yeah, this movie is about Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner possibly dating.
Did you guys watch any of the extras on the? How'd you guys see this?
See what?
The movie when you rewatched it.
I watched it on DVD, but I didn't watch the extras.
So the extras,
DVD.
they talk about the Genesis, and she was basically, he was telling her. So he had this idea. We can bounce back and forth because I don't know it all.
Yep.
This script was in development before he made Stand By Me.
Okay.
And before he made what came after it that was equally as huge of a hit.
Princess Bride.
Princess Bride. So they were working. This script was born out of discussions.
Heartburn was the movie I was talking about.
Heartburn.
This script was born. Okay. So when was Stand By Me? Like 85?
Well, I'm in her world.
86.
7?
Okay, so
I don't really.
It was in gestation for like 5 years.
Right.
And basically, how he described it is he pitched her this idea, and it was basically the horror stories of his dating life, and she was kind of appalled by the things he was telling her, the realities of the dating world from a man's perspective. And he basically asked her to put the female perspective on the things that he was describing to her of how a man views dating in this time in 1989. And she said she came up with the structure right then and there as soon as he pitched him the idea. And she took it and ran with it. And then occasionally every couple of years he'd revisit it, because they always knew that Castle Rock was going to make it.
Right.
So he was always going to kind of be able to shape the voice of it and how it was going to come out. Mm-hmm. And it was one of these things that every couple of years they would revisit and do another draft, and he just kind of sat around knowing that he was going to make Stand By Me and Princess Bride already. I just love that they already knew they were making these 3 movies in a row.
It's like 3 iconic movies. Yeah. Wow.
God.
It's why I always think Rob Reiner is kind of underrated.
Absolutely.
He hasn't really had a triumph in a while.
I know.
Though, but that 3 movie run is.
And then he has other things like Misery in there, and
I love
great movie.
There's just so many other things that he has in there that
I've always rated him pretty high.
I think he gets forgotten for some reason.
A lot of time.
Today's generation.
When you bring him up, everybody's like, yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, when he's brought up, it's usually it's because of All in the Family, not because of what he's done behind the camera.
It's a good call.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of like Penny Marshall a lot of times.
I agree.
And the story.
The two of them, it's a very similar story.
Yeah. The television to film.
Yeah.
And
But look at this one, just super quick. Look at this run. He has this run of movies. Like I always play this game. Who had the best 4 or 5 run of movies?
Yeah. Spielberg.
Spielberg's up there. So
Yeah.
Stand By Me, Princess Bride, Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men.
Jeez.
home run,
Wow.
home run,
Yeah.
home run, home
Wow.
run.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
insane. Yeah.
So-
Back to back to
Yeah, but
back.
look
at-
he was
but
in the zone.
I think if you go past that, though, it starts to get a little bit rocky.
Yeah, but I mean,
But if you go before that, you say,
dude, one iconic
Yeah.
movie. That's enough.
look, and
you know?
I left off This Is Spinal Tap and The Sure Thing.
which were
because
before them.
The Sure Thing, I'm not sure is as
But this is Spinal
quite
Tap.
there, but this is Spinal
yeah.
Tap. If
It's
we
legend.
switched
Yeah.
those, he'd have 6 for sure. 6
Yeah.
classics almost.
Yeah.
And so
The Sure Thing is fine.
Sure Thing's fine.
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
I don't know if it hits
Yeah.
with the rest of them.
No,
I don't know.
it doesn't.
cut me off if you got more anecdotes, but some of the things that I learned on the extras that were fascinating to me is he did not want Billy Crystal originally to play this
Yeah.
role. He did not imagine it because it's him. Because basically Harry is Rob Reiner.
No, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying before.
yeah,
That
exactly.
wasn't me saying it. I read that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it was the two of them,
I'm-
pretty much.
well,
yeah.
I think here's the way I read it. The book is more from her perspective. I heard she was hoping Rob Reiner would play the part. Like that was always her wish.
Wow.
I mean, he is a performer.
Yeah, she
I- I-
thought-
that makes sense.
She
Yeah.
thought only Rob Reiner would work as in the role, and eventually they got to Billy Crystal, but because Rob Reiner just didn't want to do that. But she
Yeah.
thought eventually he would do it.
Yeah.
She'd be able to convince him, or he'd just be like, "I have to play this part. It's me." Anyway, that's the.
You know, it's
Nora
a
Ephron
dumb,
story.
it's not a script thing, but a dumb reason why I think he wouldn't have worked is he's super tall. And
Yes.
One of the things I like about this movie is that the two of them they have this weird like same height, equal
height.
footing.
They look right on
Yeah.
screen together.
Well,
they
you-
look like
you
a
think of
perfect
that
couple.
aesthetically
poster.
pleasing.
That
The poster is them standing next to each other,
yeah,
walking.
especially
yeah.
when it's in wide. It's kind of like they're standing
It's
apart.
perfect.
There's a
perfectly-
balance
yeah.
to it
Yeah.
where that Billy
Yeah.
Crystal brings with
Absolutely.
her. And,
yeah,
it just
not a
works.
script thing, but very important to the storytelling
Yeah.
somehow and the way we absorb it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but I didn't know. Even to this day, I thought that "I'll have what she's having" was an ad lib, but it wasn't. It was. I didn't know Billy Crystal wrote that line.
Yeah, he wrote that line, but then they gave it to Rob Reiner's mother.
Mom. Yeah.
that's,
yeah.
that's-
What a great line
And,
for your mom to say.
And he also wrote the end line after they reshot the ending 3 different
Oh.
times.
Mhm.
Like they had 3 different times where they came back and reshot the ending, which is crazy to me. Like that's
Well,
a huge scene.
we're gonna
to
talk.
kinda,
We're gonna talk about the ending
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a lot to talk
yeah,
about
keep
that
going.
ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the only other things I have, the thing the book really emphasized to me was that these conversations and stuff that they had were really stolen directly from real life. So
Yeah.
almost all these kind of quirky conversations. Nora Ephron, she orders her salad the way Meg Ryan orders it,
great.
things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And Rob Reiner said, you should put that in there
Yeah.
one day when they were eating lunch. That's what you should do. And so all of these things came from real life, which is a great way for writers to actually, to steal things. And this is the way, when they say write what you know and stuff like that, it's not necessarily that you're writing the story of like how you had this tragic breakup or how you, graduated from college or some stupid
It's
thing.
the bits.
It's the bits.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
the bits
Yeah.
that are the key.
those truthful.
Yeah, and they
Small-
fit everywhere. Just
Yeah.
something somebody will say.
If I may, I feel like
roped in.
in a weird way, movies like
Well
this
said.
kind of influenced the Kevin Smiths of the world later on.
Yeah.
Like you know
could
what I mean?
see the transition into
This
that.
is Woody Allen-ish, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
But I mean, this to me feels like a mature Kevin Smith movie
Yeah.
before he existed, and he
That's a
probably
good
learned
call.
a lot from these. It's characters quibbling and talking about
Yeah.
their
The
idiosyncrasies
banter is
and
very
the banter,
much,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
it's a
the types of things when you're trapped in a car you have to talk
Yeah,
about with the person next to you.
exactly.
which
That's
we're
what-
going to talk about genre and how this breaks
Yeah.
it, but like a movie like this, which I feel like I was exposed to a lot as a kid, the plot and the story, it never was the reason I loved these things. You don't love this movie because of the plot.
No.
Yeah. I would even go so far as to say, I brought this up before, but that Robert McGee triangle
Yeah.
where the top one is arch plot, and then you have on the right side it's the surreal stuff and the like now I can't
like
think
the
of the name.
artsy.
Yeah, exactly. But then on the other side you have the mini plot, and on the left side, and the mini plot is what this is. I think.
Yeah, I think
It's
so
all
too.
mini plots.
It's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
like real life. There's not a huge plot
It's
involved.
not a ticking
Yeah.
clock. or
Coincidence
Yeah.
sometimes comes in. It spans time, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it doesn't have like log line wise. well, it does kind of fit this. It doesn't have like that really strong goal, obstacle, stakes thing.
Yeah.
Like if you say the goal is two friends who try to remain friends without falling in love or something, I guess is kind of the goal. Like
it's the sex
can
thing,
a friendship be maintained without sex getting in the way? If that's the goal, the obstacle isn't that crazy. It's not like they're constantly running into each other naked or something. And the stakes aren't that bad either.
Well,
it's not life or death. If this friendship were to end and they were to fall in love, it doesn't feel life or death. So,
it's like a fulfillment stakes essentially.
There's something different going on
here. So you know what I said to myself out loud for some reason when I watched this? I said it's a movie that succeeds on authenticity and not craft.
Yeah,
I don't know why I watched the movie and I was like thinking about what I would say on the podcast.
It all rings true.
And that's what I was like. I was like, it's so authentic. It doesn't matter. It can meander. I don't even care.
Yeah.
And it does. It meanders a lot of the time where I'm just like, okay.
It's a strange movie where it works within convention, but then also is interesting of how it constantly is breaking the rules, following the rules, breaking the rules, following the rules.
Yeah. It's a balancing act if there ever was one.
It's totally aware of what came before. It's definitely one of those things.
Yeah, it's like the self-aware rom-com that's in the time of rom-coms not being self-aware.
And it was
while still appealing to that. Whoa, what happened?
Because when you're rewatching it and they're using kind of Casablanca as the pop culture reference for the great love story, and it's funny because now it's not, it's kind of like something you
now
talk
I think
about.
People look back and they're like, I wish I had a Harry Met Sally love.
It's kind of taken up that.
It's kind of like how
piece.
Sleepless in Seattle replaced that other movie on the Empire State Building that I can never
exactly
because it was talking about
Affair to
Remember.
Affair to Remember. Yeah.
And the reason I know that is because of 30 Rock, not because what was it? Affair to Men Black. Yeah. Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
that's why I wanted to talk about it because it's so weird. It's a
moving
weird,
my mic.
Great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of them, Harry and Sally, are both they're better characters for people now to look back at and be like, I'm more, because Harry's like this, anxiety-ridden, dark, kind of
2019
cynical
guy.
2019 guy, but he was unique then.
Yeah.
Where now he's like kind of standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I know that guy. I've been that guy.
He's way less eccentric. He would be viewed as way less eccentric by this audience, but back then they were probably like, "This guy, man, always talking about death." And
to bring it back, though, the reason that this works is because back then, since it was written with authenticity by Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron, they were kind of unique.
Yeah,
their perspectives were unique, and that's why it worked. They said things that could bring out the idiosyncratic things in the audience too. You know what I mean? It worked at its time. It
absolutely.
Did. It totally does. I don't know if it would work now. I don't think it would.
If you tried to do a new version of this,
it would be so extreme. The guy would be like suicidal.
Yeah,
it would start with Harry trying to kill himself. Literally.
Yeah. And then
seriously.
I think you're right.
The movie was heavily compared at the time to Woody Allen movies, and this is the one thing I always said about it. It's strange because it is very much like a Woody Allen movie, even with the interview sections that break it up and things like that.
The fourth wall breaks.
The chapter breaks and things. But it also isn't like that. Like it's more I always found it more accessible or more everyman.
It's way more commercial than a Woody Allen.
Woody Allen's darker.
Right.
Woody Allen's more morose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I also think Woody Allen stuff is very like I say pretentious. I think Woody Allen stuff is very pretentious, and I don't think this comes off as.
I don't feel like this movie's pretentious.
An air of pretentious at all. To me, that's the difference.
The other thing that, I mean, even down to like the photography, like this was Barry Sonnenfeld. That was the director of photography for this movie.
But it doesn't look like Men in Black, does it?
No. But it does have a certain accessibility to it. I don't know. It's like the wider shots, the framing, there's certain stuff.
I agree with you.
Not stuff we talk about here, but still, there is some.
It's your very standard Hollywood story, but it's told differently.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean.
It's unique in its time. I guess this was a genre when it came out, right? But It was, right? I mean, was
don't know enough
was
about
the
the history of
rom-com
the
in
rom-com.
1989?
I would say I can do some quick math just by saying type in Julia Roberts and see what comes
Yeah.
up.
Pretty Woman
But
was
Julia,
just
that's
around
nine.
that time.
But that's 90s. That's like
Yeah.
Well,
91.
I-
What it was?
Let me say because this is 89.
I like how we do all this spontaneous.
Yes, but
we,
it's
we don't
okay.
look up beforehand.
We got plenty to talk about with this movie.
We
so,
do.
I mean, we can
Nine-
keep
But
going.
I feel like this. I feel like the rom-com as even a term was not completely established yet.
It's a good call.
I don't
didn't
think it was.
about it.
Then again, I was also a child.
I was a child too, so
I can't.
Jeez, Jamie, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Well,
Not that much older. Huh?
rom-com wasn't really my genre when I was a kid.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and honestly, to me, rom-com came about with Julia Roberts.
Okay,
Like,
no,
that's
no,
what I
your
feel.
perspective is better.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
And that
I
came,
don't-
so Pretty Woman, which was Julia Roberts' first rom-com,
Which year?
1990.
Okay, so after this, so
And-
this might have kind of
That's what I'm saying. Is
sparked
I don't.
that.
I think that we're saying we wrote down how does this break genre? I'm like, did it break the genre?
Yeah.
Or did it make the genre?
yeah,
kind
no,
of?
that's a good call.
Because then it's like, here's like kind of the cynical rom com, but then it's like they were like, what if we made these but they weren't cynical? They were
Yeah.
sweet.
Right?
You know, what if
It kinda took
take
this
Harry
and-
out of it
Yeah,
and put in the
That's
other
so
guys from the
interesting.
movie?
that's so
Right.
interesting.
And
You know, and
it-
it's gonna.
Interestingly enough, though, I remember from that book. So Sleepless in Seattle, when they were casting that, they were trying to cast Julia Roberts in that movie. That was the big thing. They
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to
yeah.
get her to be in it at that point.
That's so funny
and
because
not
she
so
was
unfortunate.
the romantic comedy.
There you go.
Yeah,
So then Meg Ryan came back with Sleeps in Seattle, and then You've Got Mail.
Right.
I love both
Right.
of those movies. He
He loves You've Got Mail.
well, it's fun.
It's fine. I'm kidding.
It's fun, man.
He likes
I'm
the
easy.
original movie, the French.
The French version, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's this book that is a great book, and how I was introduced to this guy was I used to go to these creative screenwriting expos in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they were incredible. And there was like all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for a weekend at the LA Convention Center, just screenwriting classes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And
Right.
you would go for like a 90 minutes of one subject. So this was one of them. There's a book called Writing the Romantic Comedy by Billy Murnett. Now, it was written in 2001, so maybe some of the references are kind of won't land with everybody. But I wanted to see how this movie compares to his.
What he said
He
then.
says he has 5 secrets of writing a great romantic comedy. But now that you kind of considered that maybe this kind of created that subgenre, it might be like it was modeled after this movie.
You know what? I said that, and I kind of came up with the idea while we were talking. So
So
Right.
this
it's
is a,
a
weird
great
thought
point.
that I didn't
yeah.
even think about until we started talking. So
Yeah, because certainly there are things that influenced or predate. I mean, is the Annie Hall rom-com?
This feels more like
like
this feels like if you took a rom com and Annie Hall and then put something right in the middle.
yeah.
This is that.
Yeah,
What
agreed.
that, whatever that
so
is. Yeah.
meaning like it's like
It's a
the
more
spring,
accessible Annie
the
Hall,
springboard to
accessible.
more commercial romantic comedies. Okay, so number one, the central plot conflict, if you have a plot, which this one doesn't, must be connected to the romantic relationship. And he used examples like Romancing the Stone, which is a great one.
Yep.
There's Something About Mary. It's all about how the two of them are going to get together. And the central story question should always be beneath everything. Will these two people end up together?
I was gonna say before you said that, Jimmy. I was gonna say this movie. This movie kind of feels like it created the will they won't they?
Yeah.
Doesn't it a little bit?
So I
Like,
don't know enough about love stories before
Neither
this
do
to
I.
speak with any
Yeah,
authority.
I don't
There's
really
probably
either.
some people who are like, you guys.
We're only.
Yeah,
We're,
yeah,
we're only.
you
We're
idiot.
only
You guys
talking-
are idiots,
we're
man.
We're talking. We're morons.
yeah, we're not talking about. We shouldn't be referencing history. We're talking more about the script, but it's a good point to talk about. So okay, so that's his. That's not even his secret. That's his like number one thing you need to do above all things. So his secret number one is chemistry must be shown on the page. We have to see two characters interact, and every single time we see them on screen together, we have to think to ourselves, they should be together, and we have to root for them to be together.
I feel like that's.
It definitely does that. And I feel like I've seen romantic comedies that don't do that, and they're not as good. You know, when you're like, I think this person could be with somebody else, it's
Yeah.
not as deepening. So the first secret, it passes
And
that.
and it does it by the fact to me that Sally doesn't stop talking to him.
Yeah.
Even in the car ride, you're like, normally this person would just shut off. She never does.
Their chemistry is
They
so
have chemistry.
It
comes off great.
Yeah, from
Moment
that
one.
first scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Secret number 2 is tell the story with dual protagonists, which this one does. I mean, this one is a perfect example.
Although,
they're in
have
almost
some
every
commentary
scene
about
together.
that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we can get to that.
We'll get
I've
to
got
that.
some more on that too.
Yeah.
Secret number 3 is tweak the love story formula. Tell it non-traditionally, which this one does. And it uses examples. Billy Murray uses examples. Sleepless in Seattle, the lovers don't meet until the last scene. 4 Weddings and a Funeral, the way that story is structured. Groundhog Day is just one day over and over again. The lovers meet over and over and over again. Defending Your Life, they don't fall in love until after they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so, I think this story passes that.
Right.
Like,
it does. Yeah.
Romantic means secret number 4 is romantic means sexy, comedy means funny. So you got to deliver on the comedic promise of the premise through physical comedy, comedic set pieces.
It doesn't do that at all.
Funny dialogue. Yeah, it doesn't really. It's got the dialogue.
It's got the dialogue, but there's no like Harry doesn't trip and fall in a zoo or something.
Yeah, it doesn't have it doesn't have the physical comedy.
There's no
there.
like Rob Schneider. Hey, what if Harry worked at a zoo?
In
None
fact,
of that.
when I was watching it, I thought it would make a great play. Just with a kind of abstract background, almost like if you ever seen Sexual Perversity in Chicago by David Mamet, which
I've never seen that.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen clips.
Yeah. Anyway, it became that movie, a very famous 80s movie that might be a rom-com that I can't think of right now. But anyway, I could totally see, just putting these different conversations and moving them, because there's only like really 4 main characters.
Once again,
in the whole thing.
Woody Allen, Scenes from a Mall.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
people talking.
People talking.
Places.
You got to deliver on the sexual tension promise of the premise, physical situations that force sexual tension. I feel like every single scene is that.
It builds and builds and builds. Yeah.
Romantic dialogue, it definitely has that, especially in the end. Secret number 5, it should ultimately be about something, which this absolutely is.
Yeah.
Can men and women be friends without being lovers? And I think this movie says men and women can be best friends and lovers. It's got to be best friends. It can't just be friends. It's like the deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's it. Those are the 5, and I think it, except for the physical comedy aspect, I think it does all of those things. It's just something to think
the
about
movie.
when you're
The movie's
crafting.
doesn't have much texture as far as like
construction wise.
like just physical stuff. They're basically just in rooms.
Yeah, there's no car chase.
There's no like Uptown Girls. Like I have to get to the play at a certain time or to tell her I love her. I don't have to race to an airport. There's none of that.
Well, he does race.
He races.
He does race.
He does race, but he doesn't.
Hence, that's the one thing I want to talk about.
He doesn't run into a fruit
movie.
cart or something.
Yeah. But even then, like a lot of the movies make it so like the person's leaving they're going to Britain for the rest of their lives to start the new job, and the only time you can tell her you love her is right
there.
Even then, I don't think there's actual urgency in the ending of this movie, other than the fact that he just wants it right away.
Yeah,
because like
he
if
wants
he told
to
her
start
the
his
next
life
day,
now.
I feel like it would still
it
work.
would still work.
Yeah. The
It's-
why nows.
The why now?
Why now?
I don't think this movie has a why now.
It doesn't, and it doesn't. It shouldn't.
Yeah, that's true.
This is authentic and real.
Yeah,
Life doesn't have those.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. Yeah,
it's a good call.
The other thing that happens in a lot of rom-coms that this movie really doesn't have, like most rom-coms, the formula is this: a couple that can't get together for some specific reason, like your favorite movie,
Shrek.
No, I can't think of
Mine.
You've Got Mail.
It's my favorite.
But they're 2 competing stores.
It's fun.
So even though we want them to get together, there's this 2 competing store issue in the way. This movie doesn't really have that. They just kind of have an agreement or something.
Yeah.
There's not a specific reason they can't get together.
Yeah.
So
the only obstacle is the fact that they're friends and they just think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Sleepless in Seattle, they can't get together because they're geographically
Yeah,
never met
they have a
each other,
huge
you know?
thing hurdle in the way. Yeah.
All these movies.
Yeah.
I can say without a doubt that this is way more realistic in my own life even than all those.
Yeah.
Because whoever has those problems, like, oh, we both own competing stores, I guess we can't date. Like, no one has that. Yeah, it's not a problem.
It's the mini plot. And that's
Yeah.
the mini plot. Mini plots tend to be more realistic. So
The Romeo and Juliet, like our
You
parents
both have
hate each
YouTube
other.
channels about
Right.
the same
yeah,
topic.
like some dumb shit like that. Right.
two competing podcasters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually just I don't think we should date because it's not a good idea. That's that's life right there. Yeah. Where are we?
They registered your domain.
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
And they refused to sell it to you.
And then the ending is always, well, we'll merge the stores together.
We'll both use the domain.
We both got mail.
No, you asked the question. This movie breaks a lot of rules. It's got low conflict, and so you said, I don't know which one of you guys brought this up. You said not a specific goal for the heroes. I added.
Was that you or me?
I added filmable goal
Okay,
because this
yeah.
one has the classic. They're looking for love,
Right.
you know. But what does that mean visually?
Again,
you know,
it's
like-
more.
Kiss. It means
a
kissing.
kiss. I know.
Yeah, it means
I'm saying
kiss.
you gotta remind people the goal's gotta be
Visual.
filmable. We have
More-
to see it.
But
Yeah.
more going back to the log line, I don't think that goal, the love thing, it's not how you'd state it in the log line.
No,
That's what I'm
you're
saying.
right.
Like, it's not where
Absolutely.
the major conflict of the
I agree
story
with
comes.
you.
So I think the opposite is true. I think the goal here is not to fall in love with the other person.
Yeah,
It's-
that's a good
yeah.
call. We're just gonna be friends.
They
Which
fight
she
their
says in the
fighting
inside.
their
Yeah,
urge at every turn.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then their deeper thing is they're looking for love, and that provides conflict because they have the internal conflict of looking for love while they're trying not to find it within each other. Not that provides a huge conflict because we don't see them struggling. Oh, I need to love this person.
yeah,
It's more this kind of, I don't know, fate kind of thing. Like we
Yeah.
know because we're the observers, we're the chorus
Yeah.
watching that these two should get together, but instead they're just not. You know?
Yeah.
So it's a strange movie when viewed that way.
yeah.
Um,
'cause-
It does have a way of making the audience feel omniscient.
Yeah, it does. It does. We
Like,
know.
we
That's
know
why
what
it
our
resonates
opinion
so
needs to be
much.
on this.
Yeah,
we are the matchmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We all know what you should do.
Yeah.
Right.
We're just waiting for the credits.
So it's more putting tension to us. Like, when is this going to turn the corner?
Yeah.
It's an unusual
That's
movie.
a good call.
But
their
it's
goal is to not
hence
be
what we were
together.
talking about before. That the way this movie does it, it's genius, and we're all waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
You know, and how many times have we seen that since? You know, like The Office did it for 4 years. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's
Playing on that.
it's a
Yeah,
dangling carrot
Yeah.
in front of the audience, just like
Yeah.
it's what you want more than anything.
Well, here's the weird thing about the difference between The Office and this. Like, I would say in The
There
Office,
is, I'm not saying it's the
no,
same.
I
you know,
understand.
yeah.
But in The Office, there's this huge tension among them because they both do love each other. In this movie, I think they're perfectly happy being best friends.
Yeah, no,
you know?
they are.
Which
And The Office also had like the I'm engaged or we're
Yeah.
working together. We can't. Yeah,
right.
thing.
There was more conflict keeping them from being together, and their
No.
goal was almost to be together. where-
Harry and Sally love each other just as much as friends as
Right.
they probably would as lovers.
And
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't diminish how much they love each
and,
other.
and that's why I mean the goal is
Yeah.
even soft because it's not like these are two
Soft.
sexually charged people
No, and-
who are fighting not to work on their urges because it'll destroy their friendship. They're just almost testing this theory.
I
that-
think their lives are great as long as the other one's in it.
right. And
It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. You know what I mean? Like I could almost settle for them being friends.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not.
It doesn't.
I want to jump the gun a little bit here.
Yeah.
We'll go to the end question as opposed
We can
to
talk
the
about the end. I
Yeah.
mean, there's,
Well, I was.
But
you
I
jump the
think-
gun, and I'll go back because I got some.
Okay, no, no.
No,
we'll
I'm not
jump.
saying skip the gun.
Yeah.
I'm just saying jump the gun. But just because we're on the topic, I think this movie, in some ways, we talked about this, and I heard that Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner wrestled with the ending because they didn't feel it was realistic or true to their cynical sensibilities. And the ending kind of has it both ways, in some ways. You know, it kind of proves this point. But I think, to an extent, the movie is trying to make the case, like the happy ending of this movie is also making the case that two people could be best friends. But then in the end, it shows that they get together, so it kind of has it a little bit both ways.
Yeah, it does.
I kind of always assumed that they got divorced like 5 years later.
I
don't view
That'd be a
it.
great
crossed my
sequel.
mind. Yeah.
I don't.
Oh man,
That would
it
be
would
great.
almost be like the
Yeah.
suns. What is it? What is
Sunset,
The,
yeah, after
the,
Sunset,
The
oh,
Linklater.
yeah.
Yeah, the Linklater
You could do
trilogy.
a version of that.
Yeah, they could do a bunch of jumps.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe
Please don't.
now might be really. Don't do that. But
John Cougar Mellencamp could be in it now that
Right.
Meg Ryan is remarried.
yeah, the weird thing about Harry is that I don't know if I totally believe him running out of that room to go to the party thing.
Is that's your issue with the character? You
If
don't think
I
it earned that?
If I had an issue, I think that in the end he's his biggest saboteur. The movie seems to play that out completely,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't think this movie would be notable now. We wouldn't be talking about it if the ending was different. Because that ending, the ending's earned. Like Jamie said, the ending's earned, and it's the reason it was such a huge hit and it's iconic. But at the same time, I'm like, I think it might be a better movie if he would. We know that they could be happy and in love, but if he chose to just be like, nope, I can't do this.
So yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's
no,
a better
because-
movie, but it wouldn't be a notable movie. if
Woody
they did
Allen
that.
would have done that.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
what Woody Allen would have done. But this
Because-
isn't a Woody Allen movie.
Well, I think what you're speaking to is it's so honest
Well,
and so
They
truthful.
struggled with how to write the ending. We're struggling with how to like figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
because
yeah.
Yeah, well, he said that to the very almost to the day they were starting shooting, he was ready to fight for a downer ending.
Yeah.
Rob Reiner, and the only thing that solidified the ending for him was that he fell in love with his wife on the set of the movie, and so he felt like he felt like that was he felt like that was like the universe telling him that like this should be a happy ending because finally I understand how this could be real because he met his wife on the set of the
And
movie, which
it
is a cool
wouldn't-
story in itself.
It wouldn't be the movie it is if the ending was different. I
Right.
believe that. I don't think people would have.
But I love that
come
to the
it.
day they were starting shooting,
Yeah,
he was like, "I don't
but
want it
that's-
to end this
But
way."
isn't that probably what made the whole movie unique? Is up
Yeah.
until that moment they were unsure, just like
Yeah.
the damn character.
And
After 5 years of gestation, this
right.
script.
the thing that sticks with me when I go away from the movie too is the interview sections. You
Mhm.
know, the kind of documentary kind of, which are all scripted. You can read them in the script. They're
Also very
100%.
fresh for the time.
Yes. So
Very
they're,
fresh.
They're all 100% in the script. So
They're not
That's
real.
awesome.
They're not real
They're not
people.
real.
No.
But there is something about it when I juxtapose them in the end. You know how they do this bookend version where they
Yeah.
have some people in the beginning and then they have them in the end. They kind of yada yada over the years. Like it, to me, that's the impact of the movie where they're like, "You hated me at first. Well, I hated you," or whatever. There's something about that part of it that is the impact of the movie. Like this is a movie that shows you what those one-liners really
meant.
Yeah.
You know what it is to me? It's that dash everyone says in your tombstone.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just that dash, but that's everything in that dash.
Yeah. And
It's the meh, well you hated me and then we got together.
people are summing it up like it didn't matter, but at the time, those were the big moments
Yep.
of their life. Or
Yeah.
something. I'm wrestling with how to explain
No,
it.
So from a construction
the framing
standpoint,
device
here's-
is genius
Yeah.
because it does a few things. It makes you also say every one of those people, there's another movie right there.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
Like every movie, every time you fall in love, there's a movie there
Right.
Yeah,
for everyone.
and
Yeah.
it's a microcosm of the movie we are seeing.
Right.
And they talk about fate intervening. Most of the stories involve people.
And coincidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Fate, coincidence. Most of the stories involve people meeting each other and then separating for years and then coming back together.
The last
which
one
is-
before they end is they got married, got divorced. The guy married two other women, then they met each other again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's
like,
all
yeah.
it's all sort of proving the point of the truth of the movie in these mini stories, and then it's all one big foreshadowing of the bookend.
But-
you know,
Isn't what you were kind of saying is that those also are trying to say that the genre, even if it didn't exist, we haven't figured that out. They're kind of them saying it's not a Disney movie.
yeah, no,
No, you know what I mean? Like the whole movie is saying it's not a Disney movie, and here's your non-Disney love story.
version of it.
Yeah, it's
Here's
not. There's
the
not a really big meat cute.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
It's
a
almost-
meandering, waffling pile of crap
It's-
until you get there.
It's almost like, and I'm just making this up as I go, but the the interviews are the Disney versions. Is that what you're saying?
No,
And
that's not what I'm saying.
but that's what I'm feeling like.
Oh,
That
okay.
thing is almost the wrap up. It's the synopsis. It's the fake version. Like, oh, wasn't it cute? You hated me, I hated you.
But when you
yeah.
actually
And
see
then
it,
we're seeing the mess
that wasn't
in
what I was saying, but
between.
I agree
Yeah.
with you.
And
Yes.
the mess in between. Yeah, I like that.
And
yeah.
so we sum up our memories like in this short, kind of cute, compact little shtick
I was
we do.
saying simultaneously with what you're saying is that the things that those people say
Yeah.
are proving that love in general is just not like a Disney movie. You know,
Yeah.
Right,
that-
I agree.
like they're
And
saying,
it's proving,
and then we go back to the movie. We're like, see, and now
Mhm.
back
and
to
now
Harry,
back
to Harry Met Sally,
an
right?
expansion of what we just were
Right,
talking about in this
exactly.
mini
Yeah.
framing device.
we brought up coincidence. This movie has coincidences.
Yeah.
Two giant ones.
Why is it okay in this movie? What do you think?
Well, for one thing, we've talked about in the past how in the comedy genre and in the farce, which usually are comedies, it's the one genre in which people will forgive coincidence.
Yeah, and this
It doesn't have to be A to B to C to D consequential to each other.
Honestly, the first coincidence I think is not problematic at all for the story.
no, that's
the
the one
airport
you get.
one.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
the
like,
one you
that's
get.
fine.
Yeah.
That has happened to everyone on this planet.
Yep.
And
The
it's a
second
cute meet.
one is the second one's the only time my radar went off because I was like, not only is it so coincidental that he's just standing in the bookstore one was what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
I'm just like, it is so nonchalant that maybe that's why it works. I was like, it is nothing. It's like it just cuts and Harry's just there with a book staring at them. I'm like, they couldn't make less fanfare about this moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's written like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just he's there.
And it's in the self-help section.
Yeah, right. Right.
I think the advantage you get too, if this had all happened within the same day or week or something, but this is actually a way of saying we're going to give you these interesting slices of these 3 times these people met each other.
5-year jumps.
And that's
Yeah.
possible that that's happened over the course of time. You've run into somebody 3 times in your life that
In a
maybe-
decade? Yeah.
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 It's not like so coincidental that out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
So it's just that we're just cutting out the parts in the middle.
yeah.
So I think that's why they get away with it. 'Cause
And
of
the
huge time
juxtaposition,
jumps.
I think the juxtaposition of the framing stories
Mhm.
really works to kind of forgive all that coincidence. It's sort of like here's
It's really
five-
just
yeah.
one though.
Yeah.
I feel like the bookstore's the only one that's like,
Yeah,
No, but
yeah.
but
Well, yeah,
I
that's
think
not-
if you take out the framing story, it feels a lot more obtrusive.
Because
but the framing, because the framing has all these coincidences
That's what
in
I'm
it.
saying.
Right, right.
It
yeah.
softens the
There-
blow of
there-
here. We're going to show something that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be too weird like to hear somebody tell their love story. Well, we met one time in college, but then we didn't meet again to these many years later in a bookstore, and then or something.
Yeah.
We actually met twice. It just sounds. The story sounds like that.
Do we believe all the intention we're talking about with the framing device
Absolutely.
was there? I mean, I do.
I think so. I think it was.
I don't
in the
know if it was
construction.
as
when you hear her talk about how she envisioned,
So you
the
think-
structure of it from the second he started, and then he chimed in and he said that he was sitting around. All of the stories that are being told are inspired by a story that he heard,
Mhm.
and I imagine that the two of them, talked this over as this was going to be the framing device and what its purpose was.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
The framing device too, because it actually interrupts during the movie. Like, let's talk about the structure. Like, do you think this movie has a standard screenplay structure?
it's. I was gonna say like it almost felt like an interview came between acts. But,
Almost.
But there's like 5 interviews.
Tracks.
It's not structured normally.
So
I agree with you.
It's
but
not,
I think it
but
still tracks pretty.
It's still
pretty well.
Yeah.
what do you think would be the end of Act 1? in this movie?
So
The simple thing to say is the end of the first road trip.
Okay. What do you think?
I think that's the beginning of it all, the catalyst.
I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that's the simple assumption.
because I think,
but no,
like she says, we're just gonna be friends, and then they depart,
Right.
and it's the whole movie is a response to that initial claim of hers that we're just gonna be friends.
I
Will
would've
they
said-
only just be friends?
right. I would have
Yeah.
said the ending of Act 1 would probably be right after the airport meet.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
And the reason I say that is because that establishes that not only do they remember each other,
Right.
but there's still something there.
Mhm.
And for the audience,
I-
we're like, okay, there is something there.
This
you know?
is all in the eye of the beholder. So
I think so too.
I think this is like a Fargo episode.
no.
We're kind of like throwing it
Yeah,
out
it's
there.
weird.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I say something different. But
Okay,
keep
go.
going.
Good.
Here's where I would put it. And again, it goes back to trying to log line it up. And the log line is, can two people be friends without falling in love?
Yeah.
And I think once they start trying to be friends, that's where I start my act 2.
The upside
Okay.
down world. I agree with
it's
you.
the
Okay.
I'd put it at the bookstore.
Me
I
too.
think everything else is set up for that
That's
moment.
pretty
when
deep
they-
into the movie, though, isn't
it's
it?
very
Yeah, it's
deep.
very
That's
deep.
like 40
It's a late
minutes?
It's
Probably
a late
40
break.
minutes in.
40
It's a
minutes
late
in?
break.
minutes in. And that's kind of why I believe I always in acts I'm always really cautious to go with my feel and not the page count.
I agree completely.
I wasn't trying to
Yeah.
go with the page.
No,
count.
I
We've talked
understand.
about this
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Jurassic Park, 40 minutes. Rocky, what is it?
But
45.
45.
Until he gets the inciting
I think-
Act 1.
I think
Yeah.
this one is damn late, which is why it makes it feel like kind of an independent weird movie.
Yeah.
It's like, what are all you're trying to figure out what this movie's about,
Yeah.
and it's not until that point where you're like, okay, now it settles into this groove where the fun and games aspect would be them being friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I think
Yep.
the movie.
That's a really, I mean, I don't even know if I could disagree with you, even though it's just opinion. That's
It's-
pretty great.
No, it's
It's
it.
opinion.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
I was just using a different reason, but yeah, that's
Sure.
kind of
I mean,
one point.
it's all
The
in
fun
the
and
eye
games
of-
do
it
start
is
there.
all in the eye of the beholder, but those are the trailer moments, the fun and games, or
And
the
The
Them
two of them
dating.
talking as friends who aren't dating is the movie.
Yeah.
That's the movie.
Yeah.
That's what we're, yeah.
And the question is solidified after that bookstore when they decide to meet up after the bookstore and be friends.
That's right.
Will they continue to be friends, or will they be lovers, or will they be neither because they try to be both?
And this movie has a pretty classic midpoint in some ways too. I think when they kiss at New Year's, like
Mhm.
that's the thing that shifts the gears to the tension. Will they be able to pull this off? Won't they be able to pull this
Yeah,
off?
yeah.
And things get a little more tense after that point.
Yeah, I agree.
I was trying to pick like where the all is lost would be, and I'm not sure if it's when they have sex or when they get married.
I think it
That's
is.
Pictionary.
Pictionary. Yeah.
That's
For
a
both,
great
I
scene.
think for both of them, it's a great scene because number one, we're seeing two perspectives,
Yeah.
and they're both like, "Well, all is lost there. I'll just settle for."
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
That's where I would
like
put that.
So do you think Dark Night of the Soul would be the sex then?
Well, I was debating like where exactly that would come.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it's
Dark
not.
Night of the Soul.
That doesn't
Yeah.
sound completely off, though.
No, it definitely doesn't. Well, here's where I was actually thinking. I was thinking the all is lost could be when she finds out about her. That's what I thought.
it.
And then I thought
That's it. The man who
Dark
wouldn't
Knight is
marry
the
her is
sex.
getting married.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the all is
That-
lost.
oh, that also Harry.
I'm
what about
un-
Harry running into his ex?
I'm
wife?
unmarriable.
That's part of it.
'Cause
It's like
that's
almost
what
like
it
a
is.
double beat. They kind of both get the same
Yeah,
feel.
that's on top of what's her name, Helen.
Right.
Yeah, so
I don't
it's
know.
the double.
I'm still leaning towards my Pictionary because I feel like that's a lot deeper than
I don't know because
You don't want the sex scene to be all Dark Knight of the Soul.
maybe not. I don't know.
it's like the only thing I'd say about if you peg it as when she finds out about her, it's all about her and not necessarily about both of them. So that's why I lean
Hence why I
towards-
was saying. Yeah.
But if you look at the worst,
Yeah, Fictionary.
but if you,
Pictionary.
But if you look at the worst thing that could possibly happen, which is typically the all is lost, for two people trying to be friends and not have sex, having sex is the worst thing that could possibly
Yeah,
happen.
so
So to me, that starts feeling.
that's
anyway,
the all is lost.
again, it's all the eye of the beholder.
That was after Pictionary, though, right?
It was.
Yeah,
it
that's
was.
way after.
And then after that, they kind of have their feud and say, I'm sick of each other.
Yeah.
And then that kind of settles into the third act.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
little more nuance to
Yeah.
after that because she doesn't want to be settled for.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And-
You're
yeah.
right. There is nuance, but I think the definitive end of Act 2 is when when they are at dinner,
Yes.
and then they basically say that it was a mistake to each other.
Mhm.
Once again, readdressing the central story.
It's great when two
question.
people can just sit and not talk to each other.
Right. Yep.
Perfect.
Right.
And then once again, we're thrust into the new world.
Where they
After
don't
they've
where
had
they don't
sex,
talk
can they still be friends?
Right.
and they stop talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There is structure.
Yeah.
It's just it's not the most important thing. That's all.
It's not.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
'Cause
But I do think that if you break it down, I mean, it's still pretty traditional.
It's pretty well structured as far as that goes. So
Yeah.
again, the first act is the only weird thing that might come
I
late.
love that it takes a
late.
while.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so
From
it's all
the vampires
charming.
don't show up
yeah.
for a while.
At the
So
midpoint.
yeah, at the midpoint. Yeah.
It kind of
Right.
related to this, but I was going through because this is a very quotable movie, has a lot
Yeah.
of great
Sure, yeah.
dialogue and things like that. So I was sitting there trying to analyze. I was like, oh, maybe we'll talk about on the nose dialogue versus not on the nose. And while there is some of that, a lot of this dialogue is dead on the nose.
It's very,
But I think there's a good reason. I think because these great scenes, they're kind of like two people sharing secret knowledge of stuff about the other sex. And so they're being very frank with each other. They're not beating around it. They're just saying things like, you're high maintenance or whatever.
It's almost like they're doing light stand-up routines.
They are. Yeah. That's exactly it.
About the opposite sex.
About the opposite sex or about their sex.
Yeah.
Men do this. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
By the way,
also a reason this movie probably doesn't hold up very well for a lot of kids.
I was trying to figure out, I guess this movie invented high maintenance, a term that I've used throughout my life. I mean, I don't know that I shouldn't say it invented it, but for the
how about this? It popularized.
It
It did for high maintenance what Ghostbusters did for slime.
And I was like, oh, and it has a lot of little things like that just became part of the culture.
Your high maintenance, right? Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And, but yeah, so even like I was looking at the
faking orgasm conversation probably amplified tenfold after this movie.
Listening to Nora Ephron talk about that, she was saying this was Rob Reiner, and he talks about how he would get fired today, and he admits that it was wrong when he's talking about it. He gathered every single woman in the office of when she told him that. He didn't believe it. He was the Billy Crystal. He gathered every woman who worked at Castle Rock in with Nora Ephron and him and say, tell them what you just told me. Is this true? And every single woman in the room said yes. Yeah. And his jaw was on the floor. So in the 80s, we didn't have Sex in the City and stuff like that. So
this actually made me think of, when did that Seinfeld episode take place?
Which one?
The one where Elaine admits she faked it with Jerry.
Probably
close.
Mid-90s.
I would say like 2-3 years after, maybe.
Almost like a 1-2 punch. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
but was this the thing that actually put that in the zeitgeist?
Yep,
yeah,
it was.
Popularly, yes,
which
I would
is
definitely argue
awesome.
it was. Yeah.
So again, that's them plucking tidbits from their life,
yeah,
and bringing them into reality. So these conversations that they're having, the secret information, they're actually delivering real secret information. They're spilling the dirt. And one of the things I always say
about
the
clarity
writing,
of intent is important.
Yeah. And one of the things I always say about writing, if you're not a little embarrassed about what you're putting down, you're probably not doing it right.
I'm always embarrassed.
Yeah.
Everything I write,
that, Jamie.
Yeah. And this, you can imagine where you might be a little embarrassed putting down the fake orgasm thing or something like that. It could be a thing. So yeah, you got to push it to the point where you're revealing your secrets a little bit.
Yeah.
All harmless, but still.
I mean, talk about connecting with an audience too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
the more specific you are, the more
the two biggest groups on Earth,
the more you'll nail it.
He talked about the first test screenings of how every woman in the audience was going nuts after that scene, and every man in the audience was shocked and silent.
That's so good.
And then apparently in other cultures, when it would screen in other countries, it's less of a secret, and so other cultures responded differently because it wasn't a secret to the men in that culture.
Oh.
It's great. Really speaks to where America was then.
Right. Right. No.
I remember what I wanted to talk about. We were talking about the breaking of the rules and low conflict. I think these, not only are they dual protagonists, but I actually think they're the villains. They are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like if you were using this from a constructive standpoint and you were constructing
their own
story,
villains.
They are the bad guys, and the reason they're the bad guys is because they keep trying to date other people, which gets in the way of the ultimate end of them getting together. And also, I think there's value in looking at this from a wrong way goal and a false model, which is there's constant wrong ones. There's Joe, the wrong ones. There's Helen. And there's all these other possible future suitors, mates that they talk about and they aspire to, which is a false goal, know.
Right.
And then it shifts when Harry realizes that she's the one all along. It shifts to, and the whole time, like we haven't really talked about false goals very much, and I didn't really write much on this, but the wrong way goal model is where the whole time we know what they should be trying to achieve,
Mhm,
and the entire time instead their emotional issues are forcing them to seek something else. And then we as an audience are trying to get them to course correct to seek the right goal, which is getting together with Meg Ryan. And so I think this is a good example of a wrong way goal, false goal.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really thought about it. I kept looking at what you said about the goal, and I was like, there's got to be a way to track that.
The strange thing, when I think back to rom-coms, it's hard to think what their goal is, because it's usually not like, I'm trying to save the world, and in the course I fall in love, because then it's not a rom-com anymore, right? So there is this,
I work at a newspaper and I'm miserable.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's one thing. That's another thing that they brought up in the commentary. They were it was and I really think this was smart. It was a deliberate decision, and it's something you really don't think about when you're watching it, but I noticed it when we were breaking it down, because it's like 40 minutes before they say what Harry's job is. He's a political analyst.
Right.
Oh yeah, right.
They deliberately made the decision to not show anything about their like job career activities, and what their point is they both have careers, they both care deeply about them, they both work hard, but this movie is not about that. And if you bring that into the fold once, then you have to keep it consistent from start to finish. So they made a deliberate decision from the start that we're not going to throw in some half-ass subplot about his political analyst or her job. And it was we were just going to show them in scenes specifically about relationships. I thought that was brilliant, because you know, even like you think about 40-year-old virgin, like there's a whole subplot with him like as a stock guy,
getting
like,
sexually harassed by his boss.
Yeah,
I was gonna say too,
there's premise delivery there, but
right on the line with that, something I noticed that I thought was very weird, especially for this type of movie. Their parents are like almost non-existent.
Yeah.
I've you know what I mean? Like, it's something that I thought that like they would be in there somewhere, but they're not really.
The only characters, and we haven't really mentioned them, are their two
Bruno
friends.
Kirby and Carrie Fisher. Who are the couple that do the exact opposite. They meet and they're instantly in love.
Yeah,
like within 5 minutes, they're instantly in love. There's no they're like the opposite Harry.
Have you ever heard of the term? I mean, I'm sure you use this strategy and just have your own name for it, but happy occasion slams. So you take the issues that a character, for instance, a perfect one is a happy married couple can't have children, and they go and they walk. They're having a stroll, and they walk past a playground, and they see a couple that's just like them with a child. It's a happy occasion, but it hits their emotional needs and core, and it hurts. And
also could be the reverse too.
And you can have unhappy occasion slams, and you can have happy occasion.
Should I have
slams.
a kid, and then you see a kid,
you see a dead you
hitting your parents, or
you want to get pregnant, and then you have two characters who just got pregnant, and the reverse is they lost the child.
She's having a
so
baby.
It's an unhappy occasion slam, where, oh my gosh, what do we do? So I think those characters, from a construction standpoint, exist almost to be a pusher, a happy occasion pusher. This is the happy version of what we want, constantly hitting them that they're not getting the thing that they're aspiring to have.
I've used that. Yep.
Yeah.
I did. Now I have a terminology.
Yeah,
for it.
I learned
that
from
terminology come from?
David S. Freeman. He's a guy who I'm gonna bring up in later episodes, because like I've learned so many tools from him. I went to like all the seminars in the 90s and 2000s, and
so you don't have to.
And this one, which was only given for 2 years, is the one I go back to every time. It was called Beyond Structure. It was a guy named David S. Freeman. He is now the creative head of 20th Century Fox India.
Oh.
So, and you think about it, I mean, they have a much bigger audience than we do. And he even has a reality show in India that's for screenwriters. That's how different the pop. Can you imagine a reality show for
screenwriters in America?
In America? No.
Nobody cares about writers in America.
He has a reality show for it's not Writing Star, but it's something like
I can't even get
like
50
Indian
Twitter
Idol.
followers.
Exactly. You ask the average American to name 5 screenwriters, nobody's going to be able to answer that question. But anyway, so
no, the better question was name name screenwriters who aren't also directors.
Yeah,
that
that's
he
the
loves.
question.
Exactly.
That and no one,
That's
barely
really
anyone can do
difficult.
it.
I mean,
yeah.
we
Because
rely-
Jamie asked us that we can
Yeah,
barely do it.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
It's not something you get famous from. Listeners.
There's their hope for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Why are you wasting their time with this? Listen to the directing podcast.
So he has one of his tools that he his class was about. It didn't talk about structure in any way, shape, or form. It was about emotioneering. It was about getting emotion out of every single moment in your script, and like 500 techniques to do so.
What a word.
Emotioneering.
Emotioneering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what he said our job as writers is to be we are emotioneers. That's where I learned this happy occasion, unhappy occasion slam. And I use it all the time. And it's such an easy but also effective tool. And I like I said, I think that those two characters exist for those slams.
They don't just show when like Harry and Sally what they should be doing. They believe that the two of them are wrong for not being together.
Yeah. It's great.
They actively are like, no, you're both idiots.
Yeah.
But we're gonna just accept it because we love you.
Exactly.
Yeah, they know you're morons. Yeah.
The one thing this movie does,
We've been talking about it.
Right.
I think is a classic rom-com thing, but when I look at later rom-coms, maybe it wasn't as classic, is it gives the two main characters equal weight. They both have almost, I bet if you timed them with the stopwatch, they almost have identical screen time.
Yep, I would bet so.
Later ones, I'm not sure. Like if you see a Jennifer Lopez rom-com, it's probably more Jennifer Lopez and it's some guy in the background.
I agree.
A guy who's kind of hot.
He
doesn't have much of a personality, but he's like nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some like Pretty Woman that probably has relatively equal weight between Richard
I would
Gere.
agree.
But I guess I'd want to ask you, because I wrote it in the thing, what is Sally's arc?
Well,
because that's why the balance is what I'm worried about.
I'm revving up to that exactly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
No, absolutely. That's exactly where I'm going. So usually in a movie with equal weight, there's each character learns something from each other is the typical way. I'm not sure that happens in this movie. Like there are two halves of the same thing and they need to come together to be
But it's
whole.
they learn something about themselves, not
through the other person.
Via, but not from.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know what that is here. Like asking what the arc is, my handle here, I don't have an answer right now. I didn't analyze it in this way, so I'm not. And it's such a mini plot movie that it doesn't feel like it's really.
I don't think it's necessary. I just want to know what you guys think. That's all.
The Casablanca thing leads me like that was my bells going off. Was
it's
the Casablanca
there for a
scene.
reason?
Yeah, the two differences of opinion on the Casablanca scene. Like I latch into that, but for all I know, Nora Ephron could have just threw that in there because that's an argument her and Rob Reiner had.
Yeah,
they put it in.
And we're finding the profundity in it.
Yeah,
it's like,
we're finding meaning where there isn't, which is like
well,
typical.
the Casablanca thing's where I would actually go with my answer.
Okay,
where I think that Meg Ryan's character wants something that is substantial, amazing, and close to kind of like Hollywood magic.
Yep.
And Harry's not that.
Right.
Her finally settling in her way, not in a bad way, for Harry and realizing he's actually what she's always wanted.
Yeah.
That's her arc.
I think you nailed it. But yeah.
Go ahead, because that's all I can
So
come
I didn't
up
have
with.
a good conceptualization of it, like a simple this to this parallel. Right. And I've never used this as an arc, but I do think looking at the movie and thinking about the things that you just said, that hers is, and her name is Albright.
Okay.
Optimistic. It's very literal. So I think she starts as a woman who wants fairy tale love. Like you said, love is a fairy tale. It's perfect, right? She has this image of what marriage is going to be, and it's perfect. And I
wouldn't be to a cynical ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
And I think that starts to unravel, and she starts to become more truthful at the deli scene.
Yeah.
When she starts saying women fake it, you know what I mean? She's admitting that like
it's not perfect.
It's not perfect. And that's like a very dramatic, it's like a midpoint to her specific character. And then by the end, she's disillusioned, right, of that fairy tale. So now she is ready to accept honest and complicated love.
Which is a great point because Harry brings her to a healthy disillusionment, whereas she brings Harry to like an optimism.
Yes.
They meet in the middle. So they do learn something from each other, I guess.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to teach
he
it,
feels
though.
all relationships are doomed, and because of her, he believes that there's reason for hope
Mhm.
And there might be purpose even.
for their yeah. So I don't know if it's a clean like before after, but
Yeah.
I do think fairy tale love to disillusioned honest love is what is proven.
I feel
know,
like
in the
Harry
movie.
is the one who changes more.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one who's running. She's just standing there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, he definitely changes more, and I don't even mean because of the running. I just in general.
But I do feel it's almost like she's like, she would be okay if he didn't
Show up.
love her. Like there would be another man who came
Well,
around who was
here's-
real.
She wouldn't be okay with him not being her friend forever. Though.
That's true.
I think they both want that to end. That tension needs to end.
Yeah.
Not
but-
to hit on the Casablanca.
I feel like we're gossiping about people that exist,
Yeah,
but
that's how
how good the movie is.
rich
yeah.
they are.
not to hit on the Casablanca thing, but it's strangely the reverse in some ways because Harry likes the ending of the movie and she doesn't.
That's so interesting.
Okay, so she goes in the direction. I don't want to hang out in a bar somewhere. I want to go out and have kind of the nice lifestyle with the rich guy. So it's almost like artificial. And Harry's version is, maybe it more speaks to Casablanca. Harry's version is, wouldn't you rather just go out with the person that you had the best sex with? And that was his version of it in that point.
But as he's looking at he's valuing relationships superficially.
Yeah, in some ways.
Yeah.
In some ways. But he kind of agrees with the Hollywood ending. She kind of
That's
doesn't
so
like.
interesting.
I don't know. It's a strange
That's
thing.
but
Well,
I agree
rom-coms
with
aren't
you.
exactly like, if you look at the genre, it's
I
not
agree
like
with
the
you though,
best.
that Casablanca is there.
There's
something
Rom-coms aren't about love, really. They never have been. They're about
People and relationships,
They're
gender
usually-
differences in relationships.
They're usually about hot people who met within about a month or two, and who just kind of want to be together, but there's some stupid reason they can't.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not about real love. And this movie is taking place over the course of 12 years,
Yeah,
and the greatest friendship either of these two have ever had.
yeah.
It's about actual love.
I think it is. Yeah,
it's about actual love.
and
It's not,
that's why I go back to the fairy tales. Like she's like, all love is perfect, and he's at the very first scene. He's like, you haven't had good sex yet. You haven't had real relationship yet. And she's like, what are you talking about?
Well,
Because she's speaking about it as in such perfection.
right.
Most movies in general are. It's the Rolling Stones song. It's you can't always get what you want, but you try sometimes you get what you need.
Yeah,
They don't get what they want. They get what they need.
that's perfect.
So that's almost all movies are that.
Yeah.
Right? So a typical rom-com where it's like, I want to have the best bookstore, like Jimmy's favorite movie, You Got Mail. They
Shrek and You've Got Mail.
Yeah,
Two movies we love.
They find
we
out
got to find one to
For
button push
Jamie,
right.
Jamie.
They discover that they discover that instead of needing the best bookstore, they need each other.
Yeah.
So their want was to have the best bookstore. Their need was to have each other.
Yeah,
And then they're happy because they got what they need.
yeah.
In this movie, they have those different wants and then they come back to what they need, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah.
Where they realize the thing they want is right in front of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like two sides of it.
The reason it's a great movie is because, the reason that we can't come to a complete point on a lot of these.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the reason. It's
It's
because
honest.
it's kind of
yeah.
messy and honest. And,
That's why
Yeah.
it's great. Yep.
yeah. And that goes back to the
And even that
interviews.
last line she
Yeah.
says, and I like, you say things like that, and you make me hate you. And
Yeah,
I really
and that's a
hate
good
you.
that's a good
Yeah.
example of not on the nose dialogue.
Yeah.
Where she's saying hate with the different subtext.
Yeah.
So,
Then the last one is it's obviously I love you with I hate you.
yeah, exactly.
So her intonation changes. Yeah.
Which
Right.
sometimes I'll put in a parenthetical just to.
Just to clarify,
Just to
that's the
clue in
only
the
time
dumb
you need
reader.
the damn parentheticals, people.
That's it. There's no other
I'm
exception.
reading a script that has 150.
That's like
So-
all parenthetical.
Yeah.
Well,
I love you, dear
The
client
titles
who's
and-
listening.
The titles in parenthetical.
That's the thing why, what I said at the beginning, the whole I love you, I hate you thing, little moments like that. The fact that they miss the kiss right at midnight,
Mm-hmm.
it's it subverts it just enough where it doesn't feel like overt, and it also
Yep.
doesn't feel like it wasn't earned.
Yep.
It's like a perfect balance of messy that I completely
agree.
accept as a viewer.
Completely.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like if you gave it to someone now, they'd be like Zack Snyder's When Harry Met Sally, and the ending is, one of them trying to kill the other one, and then they realize they fall in love. mid stab or
Yeah.
something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Was that
Like,
Batman vs Superman?
Batman, yes. I mean,
A
let's
great
be
love
honest.
story.
Yeah, a great love story. Batman v Superman. But you know what I mean? It's not like there's nothing that is too far extreme in one or the other place. So it balances right there where you're like, no, it works kind of great.
It earns it.
Yeah, it earns it, but it gives you a lot of questions in like a healthy way.
Like you said, maybe they're gonna get divorced in 5 years.
Yeah, I actually don't, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
You know, and this,
Even though it's fine if they ended up together forever, that's good too.
and I think maybe the as far as this industry goes, I don't know if the world would have been ready for one where they didn't.
Absolutely not.
I always view as a kid the first movie that kind of had that ending for me was Miss Doubtfire. Was the parents not getting back together, and that was I know that seems stupid, but that's like that was a huge
honest.
thing. A huge honest thing, but that was like mid 90s, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a couple years to go. Maybe if they waited another 5,
Yeah.
then Harry would have never ran for her.
For me, it was Bad News Bears.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
They lost, but
And
they
that
won.
That was way before, yeah.
They lost, but they came together as friends.
Great movie.
I mean, Rocky.
I'd do that.
Rocky made the
we-
spread.
Rocky-
He
We
lost.
could break
Yeah.
that down for a sports one. We haven't done a sports one.
I was right.
Yeah.
I was specifically aiming at relationships, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Because we're doing basketball next time.
Basketball.
Basketball.
No.
You know, I'm not going to say no. Spoofs is a hard one, man. Is there anything left that we can say about this?
I
mean,
wanted to bring up the comic obsessions again.
Yeah,
They're
do it.
very
Do it.
easy with this one, and they're very obvious.
Well, there's only 4 characters. this
Harry is, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Harry is pretty cut and dry. All of his comedy comes out of his obsession with death, which could just be simplified as pessimism.
time. Mhm.
But like
Yeah.
all his, he's like, I read the end of the book because I think I'm gonna die, and just like he's making one anecdote after another about death and dying, and the end is.
That's
nigh.
the first conversation they have
Yeah,
together.
exactly. Hers is she has 2 in my opinion, and that is her ever-present optimism in the face of everything, which he even calls out. He's like, why doesn't anything ever bother you? Which it's fake, these things do bother her. And her complicated restaurant orders, which the movie plays like 3 or 4 times for comedy. Bruno's is really funny, and it comes up even in the restaurant scene, and it comes up in these little moments when you're actually looking for it, is that he believes he has great taste, and then everybody else in the story thinks he has terrible taste.
Yeah.
So it's not just that wagon wheel. There's 2 other scenes where where he's great taste,
Right.
And
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely
It's
right.
great.
Yeah.
And then Marie's is really easy too, and that's that 5 years apart, she's still doing the same thing, which is she chases after men she can't have. That's her, like, and the comedy comes. You're right. Like, how many times in the movie does she say, "You're right. She's never gonna leave. He's never gonna leave her." You know,
her arc
like,
ends in the movie.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
soon as they get together, she has nothing left to say.
Exactly.
it,
That's
yeah.
it. So once
Yeah.
again, it tracks.
Except she says, "Promise me, I'll never have to be out there again."
That's a great line.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Right.
But I mean, once again, the comic obsessions track again.
And the
man.
comic book sessions kind of make Harry and Sally like this almost existential odd couple,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
slob versus snob type
Yeah,
thing.
exactly,
But
yeah.
Optimist, pessimist.
Optimist, pessimist.
Yin
Yeah.
and the
So
yang.
easy.
Yeah.
Albright and Burns.
On paper, they shouldn't live together, but in practice, they're obviously perfect for each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
good. Yeah. Anything else,
Alright.
guys?
Nah, this was fun.
Nothing.
Yeah. Do you want to plug anything?
No, I'm good.
Really?
Hey, if you are looking for script notes, you can find me at scriptbutcher.com. I am right now booked till June 7th, and I don't know when this is going to air, but yeah, check me out.
Jamie, you got anything to plug?
I have nothing to plug.
I'm going to plug Jamie Nash
Okay.
at
thank you.
Jamie_Nash
Yes.
Underscore-
for Twitter.
Yes.
So follow Jamie and everything that he says.
Let me give my Venmo.
Your SoundCloud.
Here's my live journal address. So, okay,
All
guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this. This is a weird one, but I like it.
Yeah, I like
Yep.
it too.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring 2 professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.